There's a level of discipline so intense that it makes people look at you with a mix of awe and fear. And today, you'll learn exactly how to reach it. Have you ever noticed that one person who never seems to fail, who wakes up every day at the same time, follows the same routine, and simply never stops? While everyone else quits by the third week, they keep going. While others make excuses, they show up, no matter what. And you know what people say about them? Man, that's not normal. There's an ancient system created by Zen monks in Japan that produces exactly this kind of unbreakable consistency. They call it Gyoji, the practice that sustains itself. Once you understand how it works, you'll realize why some people never lose momentum, and how you can become one of them. But there's a catch. This system isn't about motivation or willpower. It demands something far more difficult: the death of a part of you that you've protected your whole life. Before I show you how it works, make sure to subscribe to Discipline Dojo, like this video, and comment below with the one habit you most want to master. It helps the channel grow and shows me that you're genuinely ready to change. All right, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Awakening. The story I'm about to tell you is about a programmer named Raphael. He was smart, successful, and disciplined in theory. But he had one problem. He couldn't stick to any habit for more than 2 weeks. Gym? He'd stop after 2 months. Meditation? 1 week, gone. Reading? He'd buy a book, read 3 pages, and then forget it in a drawer. The cycle was always the same. Monday, total motivation. Wednesday, self-negotiation. Friday, complete surrender. Sunday, empty promises about starting fresh. Raphael tried everything: habit trackers, accountability partners, rewards. Nothing worked, because he was fighting the wrong enemy. Until one day, he discovered why Zen monks can meditate for 800 years straight without missing a single day. And no, it wasn't willpower. It was something deeper. Something far more frightening. Chapter 2. The Secret of the Monks. In Zen temples, there's a rule so simple it almost sounds trivial. Yet it changes everything. Gyoji. Literally translated, it means continuous practice without interruption. Since the year 1200 AD, every single day at 3:30 a.m., a bell rings at Ai Temple. And since 1200 AD, without exception, the monks wake up. Not at 3:25, not at 3:35, exactly at 3:30 a.m. Do you know what never happens in that temple? No monk lies in bed wondering, should I get up today? That question doesn't even exist in their minds. Why? Because they understand something that most people never realize. Your brain places every commitment into one of 2 boxes: reversible or irreversible. Reversible commitments always create hesitation and negotiation. Irreversible commitments simply happen. When a monk takes his vows in front of the entire community, he's not just making a promise. He's transforming his identity. He's not saying, "I'll try to meditate." He's declaring, "I am a person who meditates." And from that moment, the negotiation ends. A Harvard neuroscientist, who has spent over 15 years studying habit formation, discovered something extraordinary. When you make a commitment publicly, your primitive brain perceives failure as a survival threat. For our ancestors, losing status in the tribe meant death, and that ancient programming still runs in your nervous system. That's exactly what Raphael did. He stopped making private promises and started making public declarations. He wrote on paper, "I am a person who meditates for 20 minutes every morning at 5 a.m. for 90 consecutive days." Then he signed it. He posted it online. He told everyone he knew. His girlfriend said, "You're being too dramatic." His co-workers laughed. "Man, you're trying too hard." Perfect. Every skeptic became fuel. Every morning when he wanted to give up, he imagined having to face them, to admit he'd failed again. The thought of that was unbearable. On day 3, the real test came. His alarm rang at 5 a.m., and the mental voice began its usual whisper. "You're exhausted. This isn't healthy. Missing one day won't matter." But something was different now. The pain of quitting publicly was greater than the discomfort of staying consistent. He realized he had flipped the equation. Giving up had become more painful than continuing. But that victory brought a new challenge. Chapter 3. The Internal War. Even with all that social pressure, Raphael was still fighting a daily war, this time against his own biology. The mind had submitted, but the body hadn't. His body didn't care about reputation, it only cared about rest. The public declaration ended the mental argument, but the physical resistance remained. That's when he learned the monk's second principle: non-negotiable hours. Every day, you waste mental energy asking the same useless question. When should I do this? Before breakfast or after? Morning or evening? That question burns glucose, the brain's fuel, before you've even started. You waste your energy deciding when to move, instead of actually moving. So Raphael made a decision: 5 a.m., every day. Not because he was a morning person, not because of productivity hacks, but because at that hour, the world is asleep. No messages, no emails, no distractions, no excuses. The time wasn't about optimization, it was about elimination, eliminating every possible reason to delay. The first week was brutal. His body fought him every morning. That's normal. Your body is a machine built on repetition, and you're forcing it to rewire itself. It resists, it complains, it pushes back. But by week 2, something remarkable happened. He started waking up 2 minutes before his alarm. His body had begun anticipating the new pattern. By day 14, the alarm rang, and before his conscious mind even reacted, his feet were already on the floor. No debate, no hesitation, no thought. Just movement. Here's what most people misunderstand about fixed hours. It's not about finding the perfect time. It's about removing time as a variable. When you change the time every day, your brain must make a new decision every time. And with each decision, resistance sneaks in. When the time never changes, the brain stops arguing. It obeys the constant. But Raphael soon discovered a new loophole. His schedule was fixed, but his practice was not. Some mornings he'd meditate, others he'd read. Sometimes a few push-ups. His brain had found a new way to negotiate. He wasn't arguing about when anymore. He was arguing about what. So while 5 a.m. became consistent, the content of that practice turned chaotic. Some days deep, some shallow, some distracted. He realized he'd solved only half the problem. He had eliminated the when, but not the what. That's when he discovered Dogen's teaching on forms, a principle so rigid it feels almost unbearable at first. Dogen taught that if you want to truly master your mind, you must perform the exact same form every single day, without exception, until your mind completely surrenders to it. Not similar, not close, not today I'll change it a bit. Exactly the same. Because the goal isn't perfection. It's total submission of the mind's need for novelty. When you remove variation, the self that resists disappears. That's the secret of discipline the monks discovered centuries ago, and the lesson Raphael was about to learn for himself. Chapter 4. The one way you think variety keeps life interesting, but variety is actually where consistency dies. Every time you change what you're doing, your brain has to make tiny, invisible decisions. Should I do push-ups or burpees today? Which book should I read? How long should I meditate? Each small choice becomes a crack, and through those cracks, your old patterns always return. Raphael decided to lock everything down completely. 20 push-ups, 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of reading, same order, same timer, same sequence, every single day. It was his own version of an Ango period, 90 days of identical practice. His friends called him robotic. His girlfriend said he was becoming obsessive. They didn't realize annoying was exactly the point. By the third week, his mind began to rebel. Every morning, it screamed for variety. This is pointless. You're not a machine. Change it up or you'll burn out. But by the fourth week, something broke. Not his discipline, but his resistance. The inner voice that once demanded variety began to fade. By week 6, he was already halfway through his push-ups before realizing he'd even started. The practice was running itself. This is what most people never understand about consistency. It's not about willpower lasting forever. It's about repeating something long enough that willpower becomes irrelevant. Your body starts to learn the sequence, like a dancer memorizing choreography. An MIT researcher who has studied the automation of behavior for 12 years explains, when you repeat an action in the same context for about 66 days, the basal ganglia take over. The act becomes automatic. You are no longer deciding to do it. You're simply doing it. On day 35, Raphael caught the flu. On day 40, he had to travel for work. This is where the old pattern normally resurfaces. Sick day, rest day. Traveling, skip it just once. This is where most people surrender, because they still believe perfect practice requires perfect conditions. But Dogen understood something deeper, something that destroys that illusion. He wrote that practice must continue without even a moment of gap, because in that gap, your old patterns return. Raphael realized what this truly meant. Perfection isn't the requirement. Continuity is. Chapter 5. Practice without gap. The all-or-nothing lie has destroyed more habits than laziness ever has. You tell yourself, if I can't do the full 20 minutes, why bother? If I can't do it perfectly, I'll start again tomorrow. That kind of thinking is the birthplace of gaps, and gaps are where your old self climbs back in. Look at any elite athlete, and you'll notice something people often misunderstand. They have rest days, yes, but those rest days are still practice. They're intentional, strategic, purposeful. Never because they don't feel like it. A rest day is a setup for the next level of training, not an escape from it. But when you skip because you're tired or distracted, that's not rest. That's retreat. A river never stops flowing. During a drought, it might shrink to a trickle, but it keeps moving. Because the moment it stops, it's no longer a river. It's just a dry memory of what used to be alive. Your practice works the same way. The moment you stop, even briefly, you're no longer practicing. You've become someone who used to practice. Day 40 came. Airport at 4 a.m. Meetings all day. No gym in the hotel. Raphael did push-ups in the airport bathroom. People stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Perfect. He meditated in the back of an Uber. He read on the plane between flights. Nothing about it was ideal, yet everything still moved him forward. Momentum was maintained. This is Gyoji, practice that sustains itself. That's when people started noticing something different. Co-workers said he seemed unusually composed. Friends whispered that he was becoming obsessive. One person even said his discipline wasn't healthy, that normal people don't act like that. Exactly. When you hear those words, you know you're finally on the right track. Because normal people get normal results. You're not here to be normal. You're here to be unbreakable. But what no one prepares you for are the moments that come next. The unexpected obstacles you never saw coming, the things you can't predict or plan for, because you don't even know they exist. Chapter 6. Pre-solutions. Your child gets sick. Your car breaks down on the way to the gym. Your boss keeps you late. These moments are consistency killers because you haven't pre-decided how to respond. Every time an unexpected obstacle appears, you're forced to decide under pressure. And that decision, in the middle of chaos, will almost always lead you toward the path of least resistance. The obstacle wins, not because it's stronger, but because you weren't ready for it. Zen monasteries have existed for centuries without missing a single day of practice. Earthquakes, wars, famines. Still, the routine continues. How? Because they never debate when disaster strikes. The answer already exists. If the meditation hall floods, they move to the dining hall. If the dining hall burns, they sit in the courtyard. There is no meeting, no discussion, no negotiation. The bell rings. The response is automatic. Raphael copied this system. He wrote down every obstacle that had ever broken his rhythm and pre-solved each one. Rain, push-ups in the garage, guests visiting, quiet workout in the bathroom, hangover. Shouldn't happen, but if it does, 2 push-ups, 1 minute of meditation, 1 page of reading. Every scenario already had its script. When X happens, I do Y. No thinking, no debate, just execution. The real power wasn't just in maintaining to the routine, it was in conserving mental energy. His brain stopped wasting fuel on decisions. It already knew, no matter what happens tomorrow, the practice continues. That certainty rewired his entire nervous system. A Yale behavioral psychologist who studied decision-making for 20 years found that when you pre-decide your actions, you remove decision fatigue from the critical moment. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for willpower, stays available to execute instead of argue. By day 70, Raphael's practice was running on autopilot. Some mornings he'd wake up, finish his push-ups, and barely remember doing them. His body simply flowed through the sequence like a perfectly coded machine. When his girlfriend's mother stayed over, he did push-ups in the bathroom at 5 a.m. The practice didn't stop, because the answers were already written. By day 90, he completed his personal Ango, 3 months of uninterrupted practice. But something deeper had changed. He wasn't just more disciplined. He was different. Friends started saying, "Your consistency is scary," and his response was perfect. Good. Chapter 7. The transformation. Because when your discipline begins to make people uncomfortable, that's when you're finally operating at the right level. Your existence becomes proof that what everyone calls impossible is simply uncomfortable. That's why they'll call you obsessive. That's why they'll tell you to find balance. They need you to slow down so they can feel better about standing still. But you're not doing this for them. You're doing it because you've discovered the truth. Consistency isn't about doing something every day. It's about becoming someone who can't live any other way. When you integrate the Gyoji System, public declaration, fixed schedule, seamless routine, and pre-resolved obstacles, you're not building habits anymore. You're reshaping your identity. You stop being someone who tries, and you start being someone who is. And when that happens, when that transformation is complete, people will look at you and whisper, "How does he do that?" But the answer will be simple. He doesn't do it. He is it. The only question left is, Are you ready for that level of transformation? Because this isn't about discipline. It's about death and rebirth. The death of your inconsistent self. The birth of your unbreakable self. The Gyoji system won't make you a better person. It will make you a different one. Someone others will stare at and think, "That's not normal." And when you hear those words, you'll know you've finally arrived. If this video shifted the way you see discipline and consistency, subscribe to Discipline Dojo, activate the bell, and tell me in the comments, what will your public declaration be? Which habit will you master using the Gyoji system? Because remember, the consistency that scares others is the only consistency worth having. If you've watched this far, thank you for your focus. See you in the next video.